Welcome to Your Passaggi Professor, a podcast for singers who want tools to bridge the gap between the hard skills we learn in music school and the soft skills we need to live focused, intentional lives. I'm your host, Sarah Neely, voice professor, director, and certified life coach. Each week, we'll talk about mindset, emotional regulation, boundaries, and more so you can navigate the passaggi of your life both on and off the stage. Welcome back, singers. Today we're going to talk about relationships, but probably not in the way you're expecting. We're not talking about communication scripts or how to get people to behave better or how to finally get someone to meet your needs. Instead, we're going to talk about something much sneakier, something that quietly creates resentment, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion, especially for thoughtful, high-achieving people. We're going to talk about manuals. So what is a manual? In life coaching, a manual is an unspoken set of rules you carry around for how other people are supposed to behave. And the key word there is unspoken. A manual sounds like people should be more considerate. If they cared, they would XYZ. A good director would. My teacher should. My partner should just know that blah, 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 blah. So here's the thing. Most of us don't even realize we have these manuals. They feel like truth. They feel like fairness. They feel like being reasonable. But they're actually expectations we've never communicated, and often expectations that other people never agreed to. And sometimes you don't even realize that you have these expectations. The manuals become a problem when we attach our emotional well-being to whether or not someone follows them. So here's the pattern. Someone doesn't behave the way your manual says they should. You then feel hurt, frustrated, disappointment, or resentful. You replay it in your head. Meanwhile, the other person is completely unaffected. They don't even realize what's going on. Or they start to feel resentful because you are now being passive-aggressive. And that's the part that stings. Your suffering has zero impact on their behavior, but total impact on you. This shows up in life all over the place, but also for singers or anyone in an artistic life. We often have manuals for casting decisions, feedback, communication styles, rehearsal processes, professionalism expectations. Some examples of this could be thoughts like, my teacher should check in on me more. If the director respected me, they wouldn't have cast me this way. Or, my colleagues should be more prepared. If I worked this hard, I should be rewarded. Now notice how convincing these thoughts feel, and also how powerless they make you feel. Let's talk about a phrase that we all grew up with. Treat others how you want to be treated. It sounds kind, it sounds ethical, but here's the limitation. Other people are not you. They don't have your values, your nervous system, your communication style, your priorities. So when we apply this rule, this manual, without curiosity, we often end up disappointed. We think, I would never do that to someone. And then we attach meaning. So what they did must mean something about me. And that meaning is optional, but it feels automatic. It's just a manual that we don't realize we have. Here's the trap that manuals create. You have a belief, if they would just do X, Y, or Z, then I would feel better, or I would feel happy. Which means you're now putting your peace in their hands. Your peace depends on their behavior. Your confidence depends on their choices. Your emotional regulation depends on someone else. And that's not empowerment. That's handing your emotional life to people you can't control. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is not about pretending harm doesn't matter. This is not about staying in unsafe or unhealthy relationships. It's not about invalidating your feelings. Feeling upset makes sense. What we're questioning here is, Are these unconscious expectations helping me or are they not? And usually they're not. There's an important distinction here in that manuals are unspoken, they are emotionally loaded, and they're tied to your self-worth. Whereas a healthy expectation is clearly communicated, paired with neutral consequences, and not attached to emotional punishment. So, an example of this could be, I'm a college professor. If a student doesn't turn in their homework, it affects their grade, not their worth, and it doesn't affect my emotions, right? I'm not going to feel upset and punish a student because somehow them not turning in their homework means something about me. In other words, I won't let my emotional well-being be affected by someone else. Now, this is a skill, and it's a skill that you can grow, and it starts with awareness. So, here's an example. Let's say that someone has spent years blaming their ex-partner for their unhappiness. They're constantly replaying conversations. They feel justified in their anger. They believe their pain means something. Meanwhile, their ex, the other person, has moved on. None of these feelings of hatred or unhappiness are affecting them whatsoever. And so the realization has to be that eventually we realize my thoughts were the only things making me miserable and had zero effect on my ex-partner. Now, that realization unlocks your freedom and allows you to move. That realization unlocks your freedom and allows you to move on and make choices that serve your future self and get you moving closer to the life that you want to live. Otherwise, you stay stuck in the past. Here's another quick personal example that I'm experiencing right now. I have a friend that I genuinely cherish. I love her. I value our relationship a lot. And we don't talk or see each other very often. And I've noticed that over time, I've made several attempts to reach out, to text, to initiate plans, and she doesn't always follow through with responding or with making the plans happen. And what I started to notice, very honestly, was a growing sense of resentment and bitterness, not because she was doing anything wrong, but because I had a manual. Somewhere in my brain, my manual was creating thoughts like, if you cared, you would respond. If you value this friendship, you would follow through and make plans to see me. If I'm making effort, you should make the same kind of effort. And here's what has become clear to me. Feeling resentful about this situation doesn't serve me. It doesn't make my relationship with this person any better. And it really doesn't affect her at all. It only makes me unhappy. So I've been practicing choosing a different thought. I'm choosing to let go of the expectation that she needs to follow through or respond on my timeline in order for our relationship to be valid. I can still be her friend. I can still care deeply about her. I can still enjoy the time we do get to spend together without attaching resentment to the space in between. And I also want to name this nuance because it matters. Letting go of a manual doesn't mean silence. It also doesn't mean emotional blackmail or passive aggression to get her to respond, which I admit is a natural response. At first, when I was feeling hurt before I clocked it and decided to pause, I was tempted to text her something like, "Hey, I can see you don't value responding to me or investing in our friendship, so I guess I'll see you whenever you can make time," or something to that effect. But luckily, I have awareness about these things, and I recognized that I was responding from that emotion of resentment. And I don't like the result that would create in my friendship. So instead, I am choosing to communicate how I feel in a healthier or more grounded way. And I've put this through a model, right? I'm seeing how I feel about it is affecting my thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. So I get to choose what I do next. I can choose to just let it go, but I can choose something else, like communicating to her, hey, I noticed that I really miss you and I'd love to hear from you more often. And I can do that without making it mean something about my worth or how she values me. And this is important too, because I know that she has a lot going on. I know that her lack of response is not a character flaw, and I know it doesn't mean she doesn't care. And when we do connect, it's wonderful, and we talk forever, and that's the relationship that I want. And it doesn't have to happen on a specific timeline. So I am being more intentional about how I'm choosing to communicate with her. Now, this whole situation involved a little bit of suffering, a little bit of negative emotion that I had to process. And I realized that it came from the manual that I had for her and not from the reality of our friendship and what she feels about me. So here's the core principle that I want you to take away from this episode. You are responsible for your own emotional life, not your partner, not your friends, not your teacher, not your director, not your colleagues. And that doesn't mean you don't care. It means you stop outsourcing your well-being. Think of the oxygen mask situation on an airplane. You have to put your mask on first before you help someone else. Because you can't help anyone if you don't have oxygen and you pass out. Put your mask on first, then help those around you. So, how do we build awareness around this, and how do we build the skill of taking that power back and making sure that we aren't depending on someone else for our own happiness? This is where, instead of writing manuals for other people, try to create a manual for yourself. Ask yourself, how do I want to respond in X situation? How do I want to respond when I'm disappointed that my friend isn't responding to me? What thoughts help me feel grounded and more at peace without unnecessary suffering in a negative situation? What boundaries do I need to feel safe and healthy? What am I willing or not willing to tolerate? Managing this for yourself is already a challenge enough. Trying to manage other people's behavior on top of that, knowing that you really can't control anyone else, that's just exhausting. Focus on yourself. So here's a practical coaching exercise. First, when thinking about a relationship, you've got to identify what's the behavior that you want from someone else. And ask yourself, if they behaved that way, what would I think? What would I feel? And notice that. Notice the feeling that would create in your body. What's the vibration? And then ask yourself, can I practice that thought without requiring them to change? And if the answer is yes, then you're golden. Practice that thought and practice that feeling that you want to have around that person. And yes, it's going to take practice. And if you find that you can't create that thought in a believable way to create that feeling, then you keep running through models and exploring slightly different thoughts about the situation that feel more and more believable to you. And you practice those thoughts. You practice thinking those thoughts, pausing in the moment when you notice that you have a manual and you're feeling some kind of way. You practice pausing and redirect your thought to something more believable that helps you take a step back and feel more grounded and more intentional. And that's how you take your power back. And it takes practice, and it's going to change depending on the situation and the person and all of that good stuff. I don't think I've talked yet about Brooke Castillo, but Brooke Castillo is the founder of the Life Coach School, which is where I got my coaching certification. I love Brooke, so I just wanted to introduce her because I'm sure I'm going to talk about her many more times on the podcast. But there's a Brooke Castillo insight that I love. And she says, if you really want something done, be willing to do it yourself. Because often what keeps us stuck is not the task, it's the resistance to doing it. When you let go of your manuals, you dissolve resentment and you restore your agency in your own life. If you feel unloved in a relationship, find a way to love yourself and practice creating that feeling of love by yourself and not by seeking it in someone else or outside the relationship. That may seem weird at first, but all you have to do is ask yourself, what would make me feel loved that I can do for myself? And see what pops up in your brain and start exploring. Then another idea will pop up and you'll have something else you can try. And eventually, as you do this and you go through this process and you work through those thoughts that are going to pop up saying, oh, well, I can't do that. I just want so-and-so to make me feel loved. You will eventually start to build that relationship and find ways to love yourself. And when you do that, you are in a much more grounded state and you won't feel such an intense desire to find that feeling outside yourself. And you can grow a healthier relationship. There's another concept I want to talk about that I learned from Brooke, and it's called a want match, which is basically when you're in a relationship, when you both want the same thing, you have a want match, whether it's in a friendship, romantic partnership with a family member, it doesn't matter, right? So as an example, in a romantic relationship, if my love language is acts of service and my partner also values acts of service, like for instance, cooking delicious meals for me, that's a want match. He feels happy when he's cooking and giving me food, and I feel happy receiving food and not having to cook it myself. So we have a want match. But not everything in a relationship has to be a want match. In fact, it's kind of impossible. One person cannot meet 100% of your needs 100% of the time. Sometimes you have to meet your own want match. And when you can fulfill that for yourself and you fulfill your needs first, then you can come to a healthy relationship where all of the want matches that you do have together are bonuses. They're the icing on the top, but they're not requirements. You are, of course, allowed to want things. You are allowed to have expectations from people that you communicate clearly, but you're not entitled to requiring someone to be different to meet your needs. And when there's a mismatch in a relationship, you get to choose. You get to adjust your expectations, notice the unspoken or unconscious manuals you have for someone. You get to set boundaries, which we'll talk about next week. Or you get to choose to opt out of that relationship. And all of those are empowered choices. But I want to encourage you not to opt out before you have taken responsibility and noticed where you are creating problems with your own manuals, your own subconscious or unconscious expectations, right? And that's where this thought work really makes a difference. But of course, if you decide from an intentional, grounded place that that relationship is unhealthy and not serving you, you always have the option to opt out. So letting go of manuals allows you to love people for who they are, not who you think they should be. And for singers especially, this skill is transformative because when you stop trying to manage other people's behavior, you will have more bandwidth to manage your own thoughts, nervous system, and in turn, your voice. So next week, we'll continue to learn about tools for emotional self-responsibility, boundary setting, and all the good stuff that will help you build healthier, happier relationships, because freedom in your voice starts with freedom in your mind. So if this episode resonated, I would love for you to subscribe, leave a review anywhere you're listening, and share it with someone who you think could benefit from this information. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to Your Passage Professor with Sarah Neely. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen. This really helps the podcast reach more singers just like you. And if you're ready to learn the life skills that smooth the passage of your life, you can follow me on Instagram at your_passage_professor. That's Passage with 2 S's and 2 G's. There's a link in my bio where you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter and learn more about working with me. See you next time.